I'd like to officially begin the meeting, CPS Board of Trustees meeting to be held on December the 18th, 2023 at 1 o'clock. Roll call.
Yes, ma'am. We have Trustee Dr. Mackey, Trustee Steen, Vice Chair Romero, and yourself. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and move to item number 2, which is a safety message, invocation, and pledge of allegiance.
Good afternoon, Chair, Trustees. My name is Gotham Stringapure, and I'm a managing principal here at CPS Energy. I run the financial planning and analysis team here at the company. I'll review the evacuation procedures so that we are prepared to be safe in the event of an emergency. If you hear the fire alarm, follow the instructions announced through the PA system. If asked to evacuate, use the glass door to exit outside and verbally alert others. We'll move to the main parking lot in front of the building or the AT&T parking lot at the McCullough Brooklyn Bridges. Our security team will be watching and will notify the appropriate emergency services. Lastly, we'll also have employees nearby who are trained to administer first aid if necessary. Safety is our top priority, and while we hope this information is never needed, we want to ensure we are prepared. Will you please stand with me for an invocation? We thank you for the many blessings you have freely given to each of us. We ask for your presence to guide this meeting of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. Provide them with the knowledge, compassion, and wise counsel needed as they discuss the business matters on the agenda today. Help us all to remember that we are stewards acting on behalf of our customers, and provide us with the grace to serve all people well. We ask this in your name. Amen. Now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Item number 3, public comment. Ms. Carpenter, please proceed with public comment.
Yes, ma'am. Public comment provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts on posted agenda items for this meeting. We will invite pre-registered speakers to speak. They may only address the board on CPS Energy-related business listed on the posted agenda. Speakers should state their first and last name, the organization or group they represent, and the agenda item they will speak about. For this meeting, we have one in-person speaker. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. Thomas, will you please cue the timer? Our first speaker is Ms. Henrietta LaGrange.
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Henrietta LaGrange, member of the Mulberry Street Girl Gang and Growing Up Brown. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. I do have one thing that I'm gonna make it mandatory, and this is for every CPS employee. I wish they'd have just CPS so I can high-five them, and when I high-five them, I'm telling them, great job. This is me because I unfortunately don't know anybody or everybody, and I don't know their names. I don't have to know their names. But I do want them to know that this community appreciates their hard work. And what I really want to address is the fact that Mr. Rudy Garza set me at ease. Now I feel like I'm going to survive this winter. And I heard it and I saw it because you set it straight for all of us. All of us are in fear. We don't want to repeat 21. And I do have a t-shirt that says I survived it. And I guess you know because I'm here. But what is most important is the CEO of ERCOT gives 2 different messages. And I guess he gives one message to one group, another message to somebody else, which is confusing. So Rudy, thank you for addressing that and making it very clear for us. And it's difficult because all of us are afraid, or we don't want to go through that again. Because let me tell you, my daughter had a fireplace and she wanted me at her house by her fireplace. But thank you, each and every city CPS employee, from the bottom of my heart. Work hard, support Mr. Garza, and Mr. Garza deserves 20 more years. Thank you.
Thank you. It concludes our public comments. So item number 4, which is chair's remark, and I would like to begin with the following. Again, good afternoon, esteemed colleagues and valued members of our community. As we wrap up another successful year at CPS, I want to express my deep gratitude to the Board of Trustees and our community again, and employees for your unwavering support and dedication. Your contributions have been instrumental in our achievements, so gracias. I want to also point out and highlight some safety tips. As we're in full swing in the holiday season, it's crucial to remember the importance of safety in our homes. Let me share a couple of essential tips to ensure your joyous and secure holiday season. Lighting tips. Be mindful not to overload electrical outlets. Secure cords safely to prevent trip hazards and avoid running them under carpets. Remember to unplug all light displays before leaving your home or going to bed. Tips for trees. If you have a tree, keep it away from heat sources. For those who prefer artificial trees, ensure they are fire resistant. Outdoor display tips. When decorating outdoors, use lights certified for outdoor use and hang them with hooks instead of staples or nails. And most importantly, keep ladders away from power lines for your safety. One last safety measure. Beyond these holiday-specific tips, let's not forget general safety practices. Install and regularly test smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors in your home. It's a small step that we can all save lives with. Item number 4 for myself and for y'all, public input session announcement. Again, it is in our community for communicate. I want to remind everybody, I'm sorry, this afternoon we have a public input session. In our commitment for community engagement, we're excited to again host our 4th quarterly evening public input session that begins today at 5:30. This initiative started this year, has given our community a valuable platform to voice their opinions and suggestions. I want to thank everybody who has participated year to date and who will in the future, who share their insights throughout the year. And then in conclusion, your feedback is vital to us, as was demonstrated in 2023. And we continue to look to your participation as we move into the new year. And on behalf of CPS Energy Board of Trustees, I want to wish you all a joyous, safe holiday. And let's carry the spirit of safety, collaboration, and innovation into 2024. Thank you, everybody. And then trustees and staff members, you'll have a little gift. Yes, and I believe there's some comments by Dr. Mackey.
First of all, I'd like to wish all employees a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, safe and health. We know COVID is on an uptick, so got to remain safe because it's catching a lot of people surrounding me, nearly half of my family in 2 days. But good, I wasn't around them, so I didn't have to worry about it. I missed a meeting, but thank God for that. You know, I'm praying for you all because you all have done a tremendous job this year. The employees of CPS, keep up the great work. Even though sometimes it gets a little rough and gets a little tough, but I know y'all can handle it because you all have been handling it this long. Keep up the great work, and I really appreciate it. I know as board members, we appreciate your hard work because your proof is in the pudding. The lights have been on through everything the last couple of years, and we appreciate that. Thank you all for that.
Is there any other board comments or questions at this point? No? Oh, thank you again, Dr. Mackey, for your comments of holiday spirits. So the next item on the agenda is approval of the consent items, and we have the following. A, minutes of the regular board meeting held on October 31st, 2023. Minutes of the special board meeting held on November the 8th, 2023. C, payment to the city of San Antonio for November 2023. And we have no procurement items this month.
I move that we approve the consent items, A, B, C, D.
Here's a move by Mackey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Romero. Roll call? Or,
Trustee Dr. Mackey?
Yes.
Trustee Steen? Mayor? Vice Chair?
Yes.
Chair?
yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So we're now going to move on to item number 6, which is the regular agenda. And that is approval of the bylaws for the Operation Oversight Committee Charter. Dr. Francine, if you want to speak to it.
Sure, thank you. There are very minimal changes to the charter for, do we call it the charter?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's called the charter.
Bylaws. Very minimal changes. I think what's important is that doing this annually or biannually, however often we do it, annually, it pushes us to look at it and to read it and just make sure we're comfortable with everything that's here. And so again, there's just, I think, literally 3 changes to this. There is nothing substantive, but Mr. Steen and I felt that this, with these few changes, now reflects what we want from the Operations Oversight Committee.
Can you please highlight what those 3 things
I
are?
had a question too on that.
Can you let her just highlight what they are, and then you can ask the questions, please?
We added key strategic projects in the first paragraph, just in the basic oversight, because that's an important part of what we do. We added that under meetings that in-person attendance is preferred. In section 5, in the second bullet points, we added enterprise metrics instead of EIP status. Enterprise metrics better reflects what we do now. And that is it, aside from changing the dates for when it was revised.
Thank you. I believe Dr. Mackey has a question.
Yes, in-person attendance is preferred. Explain that.
I just thought, because I'm here post-COVID, I know things were a little bit different before. We just decided that this made sense to say in-person attendance is preferred, but not to go as far as required, because I think we would hit a dead end if we said it's required and somebody doesn't do it. I don't know what I would do as the chair. So it's just to say that it's preferred.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm fine. Okay.
I think the only thing I would add, I do believe it should be annually reviewed, not all charters for other committees. Other comments or questions? With that, I floor to move to vote for this item.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Dr.
Committee.
I think, just to be clear, I want to make sure that move to approve with annual review.
That's just fine.
Okay, just want to make sure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor, roll call?
Trustee Dr. Mackey?
Yes.
Trustee Steen? Mayor? Vice Chair? Chair?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and move to item number 7, which is FY 2024 third quarter performance update.
Okay. Good afternoon, trustees. My name's Chad Hubengarner. I know we've met before, but just to orient you on who I am and what I do, I lead our financial planning organization. So that's our budgeting team, our rates team, and our financial planning and analysis team. 2 things to sort of contextual comments before I start my presentation. One, Corey Kuczynski and Dr. Soltow are both on vacation. So they've asked me to come and present this month's update, this quarter's update. And then second, you'll probably hear me say this a couple of times, but nothing in this presentation should be new. This is all the same information that fed the rate request and the financials that you saw over the last 4 weeks or so. This is the third quarter update, so it's all data through October, okay? Excuse me. So the same 3 sections that we cover in our standard quarterly updates. I'll start with the scorecard update on behalf of Dr. Soltow, and then I'll dive into financials and then end with a short update on receivables. Okay, this is our dashboard that you're familiar with. The top half is the actions, the projects and initiatives aligned with Vision 2027. I won't read all of them, but a couple of call-outs to mention. The third one on ERP. So I know Evan and his team have provided you with a couple of different updates on the status of Evolve and ERP. They have been working for many months on the RFP. They're in sort of the final process of that. And so tentatively, their plan is to come back in, early February, but for the January board meeting, and present their recommendation for a vendor and seek your approval. The next item, of course, the rate request. Thank you very much for your support on December 4th. And then 3 days later, on December 7th, on that Thursday, our council voted in favor of the rate request. And then the last item that I'll just highlight is around grants. So in mid-November, at the November update, Jonathan Tijerina provided his update. I just sort of wanted to provide an update on the EV and gas infrastructure. Still no word back on those grant submissions. Okay, the bottom half of this dashboard is all of the 16 enterprise measures. Again, this is a full year projection based on actual results through the first 9 months and then projected through the rest of the year. Out of the 16, 13 are on track. There are 3 that I will talk about on the next slide, but I'll just pause here for a moment so you can see the projected results on the key measures. Okay, the 3 that I'll dive a little bit more into, first is SAFE. So this one is at risk. It's got a projected value of 1.03 relative to target of 0.98. It is still possible that we can achieve the target. It just depends on what happens over the winter with Q4. It's a little challenged because of storms year to date, but the teams are doing everything they can to have a successful winter and bring this back into the target level. One thing I'll highlight, we've talked a lot about vegetation management. We are on target to hit about 1,000 miles of lines this year. That's triple the amount that we were doing just a few short years ago. So that's just one example of many tactics that they're doing to try and get safety within tolerance. The other 2 that I'll talk about is O&M and capital. So we've represented these on the prior slide as a strategic variance. That's the $810.7 million O&M and capital of $988 or $987.9 million. The reason for that is because this is a deliberate decision that we've done, right? We've talked about our performance, financially speaking, this year. Our wholesale performance specifically is driving financial results, and I'll share the metrics, the projected metrics for the full year. And all this means is we are using some dollars towards our O&M and our capital budgets. A deliberate reinvestment in specific areas, okay? We talked about this as part of the rate request when we said that we had about $130 million worth of wholesale favorability that we were gonna allocate to different topics or different business areas. And I know this was something that Dr. Soltau talked about at the Operations Oversight Committee just a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week. Again, our financial metrics are designed to be flexible and work together. We feel like an overrun for O&M and capital is prudent given what I'm gonna show you as financial metrics results for the prime 3. And I wanna assure you that when we get to the end of the year, even if they are strategic variances and they are over the target, they will be reflected as missed, okay? Because we always assess relative to our original targets, okay?
Yeah, let me just add some context there. This is consistent with the conversation we had during the rate case in that, okay, what are you going to do with the $130 million? And we said we're going to invest additional capital, bring some of those projects up, which gives us a little bit of relief on the back end when we go in and ask for a rate case. That's how we got to 5.5 to 4.25, is we brought some of that capital spend up. And for the most part, the O&M, it has to do with people. It's the overtime we have to pay when storms come in to get customers back on. And we've continued to hire, made a decision to continue hiring for strategic areas. So everybody's budget is what it is. We made, specific strategic decisions from a budgetary standpoint to fund out of our excess funds from our wholesale revenue, the things that we thought were prudent in this budget year. So my budget that was approved early on. We don't come back and do budget revisions. We report on our spending decisions throughout the year based on what's happening real time. Again, our budget is very seasonal. Once we get past the middle point of the year, past the summer, and we know what our wholesale revenue kind of is going to look like, then we can make some moves. And so, that kind of strategic variance is a term that we're introducing so that you can see real time the decisions we're making, in the best interests of our business. So that's the context for how we're reporting the budget this particular quarter.
Thanks, Rudy. I appreciate the additional context. Next slide is our operational efficiency review. So going back to earlier this calendar year, with the results from Daymark and Gallup, there was a total of 92 recommendations. Well over half of them have been accomplished. That's the 56 aligned items that you see here. The remainder have either already been built into our business plans for next year or are under review to be built into our business plans. And so all of them will be built into the business plans. Okay, transitioning to financial update. So I'm going to give you the short version because we just talked about the rate request and went through a lot of this in depth. But the appendix does have the standard pro formas that we include in our quarterly update. So I'm happy to go there should you have questions when I'm done. Year to date through quarter three, the story is stronger revenues, predominantly driven by wholesale. It was hot this summer also, that was the other driver. But the biggest item is cash coming from our wholesale performance this summer. That means as a result, repair and replacement contributions are going to be higher than forecast. And as we just talked about for a few minutes, we're allocating a portion of that overage to our O&M and our capital plans. On the past due accounts, the next slide I show you will go into a little bit more depth, but these are the exact same numbers that Deanna walked through with you two weeks ago. So through October, we're a little over $175 million of past due accounts. But to me, the headline is over 70% of that is either on a payment plan and actively being paid against, or they've already been disconnected and they're inactive, which means they've been accounted for in our financial performance over the past couple of years, and they will eventually be written off. The remainder is the target for continued pursuit of payment. And then the result of all of this is our full year forecast on financial metrics is very favorable. So I'll show you that on my last slide. Okay, this slide should look very familiar. This is almost identical to what Deanna shared with you 2 weeks ago. The only addition is we've added the quantity of accounts, just to provide you with a little bit more information. The $175 million is comprised of 200,000 accounts. But the two boxes on the left, that's the 70-ish plus % that is either already on an installment plan, that's the 83 million, or is inactive because they've already been disconnected, that's the 43 million. The remaining target that Deanna's team is aggressively going after is the 49.7 million. And the way to think about this is that 50 million, as we tackle it, will eventually filter into it'll either be paid or it'll filter into one of the two other boxes, right? They'll be put on an installment plan or they'll be disconnected and written off and pursued through collections. But again, those total dollar amounts have not changed in the last 2 weeks.
Let me just add, if you'll stay on that slide, Chad, we're gonna need to start going deeper into each of these buckets to be responsive to the questions that continue to be asked around the dais. Not all of that 83.1 million, for instance, that's on a plan is all pandemic bad debt, right? Some of it is current. And so we got to be able to break up and show you how much is still remaining from the pandemic and how much is, within, the last year or whatever the case might be. The amount of disconnections we're disconnecting about 10,000 homes a month, and we've only been doing that since about mid-October. And businesses. So we've got to show you, a little bit more granularity about what activities happening in each of these buckets. In the middle bucket, we have a process to go through collections to try to recover the things that, the amounts that are recoverable if possible. But once we, get to the point where we know it needs to be written off, there's a process to kind of accelerate that write-off so that we can write it off and move on. So I think that a start is kind of getting you acclimated to this version of how we're trying to tell the story in a little bit more meaningful manner. But there's data points within each that I think will help really understand what we're doing and what kind of impact it's having. So more to come. The next version will get a little bit more granular, but I do think that this picture is the right picture. All you can do is try to get them on a payment plan and keep them on a payment plan. The real focus is those that are not engaging with us properly, that we need to be, holding to account, which we're doing everything we can to do. So.
Thanks, Rudy. Appreciate it. Okay, and then the last slide is our financial metrics forecast. And this slide is identical to a slide that you saw just 2 weeks ago during the rate request. Okay, so no new information here. What you see is the latest estimate is the first data column on the left. This is where we think we're going to end the year. And it's driven primarily because of the cash position coming from our wholesale performance. 2.0 for the debt service coverage ratio, that's relative to a plan of 1.62. 61% for the cap ratio, relative to a plan of 62.6. And then the days cash on hand target was 170 versus our projection of 200. And this is it's a great time to have had the performance this summer that we had because we are going into this period of high investment, right? And so you see the projection for the financial metrics that was built into the rate request budget that you approved 2 weeks ago. That concludes my comments, and I'm happy to answer questions. Two things to give you just a look forward on for the next board meeting. So the February 5th board meeting, tentatively, Dr. Solto will present the FY25 scorecard metrics to you, and then either myself or Corey will present the FY25 budget for your approval. But the budget that we will ask you to approve in a little over a month is identical to what just fed the rate request. So there will be nothing new as far as that proposed budget for FY25. And with that, I'll pause and see if there's any questions.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions or comments? Mr. Steen?
I don't need to go first if somebody else wants to. Okay. Mr. Hoopengarter, I appreciate your presentation, and I've got 2 suggestions and maybe 3 or 4 major questions.
Okay.
So if we could put up slide 3. That orange line that runs across the center of the page reads, run the business, enterprise measures, end of year LE as of October 31, 2023. And I happen to know what that LE stands for latest estimate. And that's because not long ago I clarified that with our CFO, but I think non-finance people might be stumped on that one. And so in the future, if you could kindly add it to your glossary/definitions in the appendix.
Of course.
The same goes for the initialism CIAC, where you see there it says capital budget and then has in parentheses gross of CIAC is mentioned. And that CIAC appears in like on slide 18, 19, 21. I looked it up and I believe CIAC stands for Contribution in Aid of Construction. Is that right?
Yes, sir. We call that kayak. But
yeah, I Googled it and the other choices like Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference didn't seem to fit. But in the future, if you could also include that CIAC in your appendix.
Yes, sir.
My first question is also on slide 3, and at the bottom you list the 16 enterprise measures, and the last 2 listed right there at the end are team culture metrics, namely employee engagement and talent readiness. You see them right there in the lower right-hand corner. For each, would you please tell us what's being measured, the methodology, and particularly why instead of numbers, you're showing two NAs are not applicable?
For sure, yeah. I know that they're NA because they're only done once a year, and so by the end of the year, you'll see the results on that. But Lisa can elaborate.
So those two measures, the employee engagement is directly tied to the Gallup survey that we do on an annual basis. So it was just completed and reporting this month. And so it'll be filled in the next time you see this. And then talent readiness is a measure of having 2 succession candidates prepared for every senior leader role. So director and above, for every role, director and above, having 2 prepared candidates either as an emergency fill or a fully prepared leader to take that role in the future. That's what those measure. And so there's a percentage calculation for that.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. And then you already addressed this, this next question I have, and that was the 2 measures that are printed in lime green there, O&M budget and capital budget gross of CIAC. And I think Mr. Garza confirmed that this is the first year that we're using the phrase strategic variance. And I was going to ask you the question, why are you saying these are strategic variances as opposed to being, say, at risk? But I think you answered that you're showing us as we go along that there's strategic variances, but at the end, we'll either make that metric or we won't.
Yeah, that's correct. I think the characterization of, if we were to show it at risk, it's not in the spirit of a deliberate decision to spend the money. So this includes, for example, an additional $10 million contribution to REAP, which is a good thing, obviously, right? And so the strategic variance is just a different nomenclature to reflect the positivity of doing something deliberately.
Yeah, I mean, when you make $130 million of positive net revenue, why am I going to cut the budget? Just because I want those metrics to be, to show up as dark green instead of lime green. We have to make decisions every day around here to ensure that, we're reacting to what's happening real time. So, the board can hold me accountable however they want, but, when there's money to cover things that are happening in the business that we have to do, I don't know why you would send the signal to the organization that that's a bad thing. We made a deliberate decision to cover the budget overages that are completely, valid and explainable. So, you all can hold me accountable how you want, but, when there's money to cover it, we should cover it. That's how we're trying to set up these metrics, Trustee Steen. So that'd be my response to your comment.
Thank you for that explanation. My third question, and please put up slide 17. And Mr. Hubengarner, did you attend or have you viewed the city council meetings that were held November 30th and December 7th, where the base rate increase was discussed and ultimately voted on?
Yes, sir.
This Texas city's combined residential bill comparison was accentuated or stressed by CPS Energy staff and often cited by various council members who ended up voting in favor of the rate increase. However, Councilman Mark White and others, one of whom I believe was Council Member Terry Castillo, referred to another Texas city comparison chart where wages are taken into account and maintained that on that chart, San Antonio was not the least expensive, but actually the third most expensive after El Paso and Corpus Christi. Are you aware of the chart to which they were referring?
We were never provided that information, and it's not in the packet, Trustee Steen, so I'm not sure why we're talking about information that's not available today.
Well, I'd like to request a copy of that comparison chart.
So would I. Never seen it.
Would you
I
get
asked
it?
for it.
Would you?
Yeah, we can ask for it.
What
but
I would
we
recommend
haven't
is
gotten it.
that, I think that's a valid request. If we can add it to another agenda in the future, another board meeting, we can add that discussion.
Sure.
Once we receive it both from the individuals who referred to it, and then that way we have access to it, then we can go ahead and have a formal presentation on that. But it's a good point, Mr. Steen. We'll make sure we get that for the next meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. And could Ms. Ramirez put it on her action list or?
Yeah, please put it as an action item. To be clear, there's interest by the entire board to review data that was presented at City Council. Once we receive a copy of that, make sure that we work through the committees when we plan through the chair to make sure that we add that in the near future.
And then please put up slide 19. This is the last thing I have. So, Mr. Hoopengarner, if I focus on that 11th column, which is between the two green columns, which is year-end target, would you, and maybe I've gotten a partial explanation in the past, but would you please explain to me the process by which targets are arrived at? I'll say right off the bat that the many years I've been on the board, I've never been directly involved in setting targets. And so I'd like to know who precisely is involved. And when it comes time to actually set a target, who actually makes that call? And Madam Chair, if it's all right, I'd appreciate as much detail as he can give me, but maybe take 5 to 10 minutes to explain how that
Are we in
works.
time? Again, is this an item that was,
I'd be glad to help.
oh, okay, go ahead.
So these targets are part of my scorecard. And what we will present in February to accompany the budget will drive what the Personnel Committee puts into my performance expectations, which flows down into the entire organization. So it's part of the budget process. Our budget drives what we think we can accomplish or not accomplish in terms of metric performance, which the board, when you approve the budget, that budget drives our performance, and we'll show you both simultaneously, which quite frankly is the first time that we've done that over the last couple of years, where we get the budget and the performance metrics in front of the board at the same time. So you're going to have plenty of opportunity to weigh in on whether or not you think the metrics we show you in February and at the January board meeting are appropriate, which the Personnel Committee will then that feedback will flow into my scorecard.
And if I'm not mistaken, everybody has input. All trustees are asked for input for that process.
I don't recall that I've been asked for input on targets. Do you approve those targets, Mr. Garza?
So
We do.
Does somebody at some point say, there's 88.9, somebody.
So I know what you're.
Real quick, we're going to have, to answer more clearly, we're going to have, Ms., go ahead. Introduce yourself, I'm sorry for the audience.
Oh, that's okay. Good afternoon, I'm Elena Ball, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer. In preparation for our fiscal year planning, we start with a list of metrics which have been vetted over multiple years, and we just recently brought those to the Ops Oversight Committee in concept. Many of them are the metrics that you see before you. We do go through a full vetting at the Ops Oversight of what the metrics are. Relative to target setting, certainly through the Personnel Committee, we'll propose some targets based on benchmarking and other externally available information. But as Rudy mentioned, when we come forward in February, after a vetting from those different committees and input from the trustees, you'll see a comprehensive package of essentially what we expect, the levels of performance that we expect to obtain for the year based on the financial requirements to obtain that performance. So you'll see the full suite of metrics, and certainly we'll take feedback from all of the trustees at that point.
So just to be clear, there's a strategic alignment with the Vision 2027 plan, strategic alignment with the budget, and then each committees will have some variation of that being presented. So in some shape or form, it's a collective process where all trustees will have a feedback, and then it goes through, the final recommendations goes through the Personnel Committee. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am, that's
No.
right.
Oh, I want to make sure we have clear, it seems, I just want to make sure that all trustees understand that process, so there's no question,
It goes through the Ops Oversight Committee.
which is led by trustee.
To be clear, there's some confusion. There is an enterprise scorecard you are looking at, and there is a CEO scorecard that looks very similar because the measures are the same. The CEO scorecard goes through the Personnel Committee. The enterprise scorecard goes through the Ops Oversight Committee. So just so we're clear, they look very similar, but they're two different things.
And who's currently chair that oversight committee? Okay, and who's on your committee? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then just for clearance, and then those who oversee the personnel is Dr. Mackey and myself. Just want to make sure everybody understands who's involved in what. Thank you. And Mr. Steen, I believe you still have questions.
Yes, ma'am. But still, at some point, somebody has to check off on these. They have to say, okay, for the critical IT system availability, we're going to make the year-end target 99.5. Where does the buck stop? Who actually signs off on that, on all the 16 of them?
I mean,
Do you want
Go
me
ahead, go,
to
Elena.
jump in? The committee, the Ops Oversight Committee, vets the measures as well as targets. Ultimately, on February 5th, we'll be presenting the entire set of metrics as well as recommended targets to the board.
and here's what I'd say, you know, if you've seen them already, Trustee Steen, you'll get another crack at providing feedback in February. The budget that we will present in February will support all the things that we say we're going to accomplish as an organization. That is the time to provide feedback. So if you have questions that you've not asked at Ops Oversight before February, when you're presented with that information, we'll set up time and we'll visit about them. And if you don't like how they were set, then you can bring that feedback into the board meeting, into the January board meeting. But that is your opportunity. There's no, you know, ultimately, we're accountable for the measures, the things that we tell you we're going to accomplish. If you don't like the measures, then you need to give us that feedback. That is the purpose that you're here for.
I think what I'm hearing from Mr. Steen, and again, I'm not going to speak on your behalf, but I'm hearing like, who's ultimately responsible for what I keep hearing? We are as a board. So I guess I don't understand your
Well,
feedback. I want to make sure I'm
I think at some
respectful.
point, I'm still not clear who signs off on them, and then who's the decision maker that says, okay, now we've talked about this, we've gotten input from people, and now we're going to set the targets. Who's
Our entire organization is responsible for these metrics, sir. When you approve the budget, you've approved the metrics that go along with what that budget can support. We're not presenting you a budget that doesn't meet the expectations that we're setting here. That's why we're giving them to you at the same time. All of that ultimately is my accountability. So, yeah, in other words, if you don't like, 65% or, whatever we set our debt to cap ratio at, and you want to make it different, and you can get the board to change that metric, you have opportunity, to do that as part of the conversation. That's just an example of a metric I know you've been focused on. So ultimately, the board needs to decide what accountabilities they're going to hold me to at the end of the day.
Well, Mr. Garza, I won't belabor it any further, but you're saying that the organization is responsible for it. You're the CEO, so could I boil it down and say you're responsible for those targets?
Yes.
With board support.
All right.
Yeah, I don't do anything the board doesn't tell me they want me to do. I'm not out there, coming up with this stuff on my own. When the personnel committee sets my scorecard, that allows me to cascade those expectations down to the entire organization. So through the board, the expectations on the CEO are set, which is to accomplish the things that we set out to accomplish as a part of our budget process.
Good. Thank you. And that's all I have, Madam Chair, except to maybe ask Ms. Ramirez if somebody could provide me in writing what we talked about today. I do get that question sometimes, who's setting those targets? And I'd like to be able to answer it with precision.
Please conclude your comment. I'm sorry. Please.
Yes, ma'am. I was also, I mentioned this, but wanted to just confirm, for the majority of our metrics, we benchmark ourselves against other utilities and other parts of industry, and that's a key component in how we set our targets and recommendations to the board for input.
And that's a very good point, because we're trying to be in the top quartile or something like that, so
Yes,
we
sir.
can look at our peers
That's
and
correct.
say, if we want to be there, this is the number we need to shoot for.
And the investment necessary to achieve those outcomes. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Dr. Mackey?
Let's, on these metrics right here, we saying who set the targets for this? How have we done it in the past? I mean, I thought we used a company for that.
I'm going to take you down memory lane here for just a minute.
Yes, please.
So in years past, the Personnel Committee was driving the scorecard and would work with staff to review the benchmarked recommendations from staff. We did have a third party who also reviewed those scores in a second review, if you will. The Personnel Committee was setting them and then making the scorecard that was cascaded to the organization. You may not remember, but I think last year, if I recall correctly, the chair, in an effort to be more transparent, made the suggestion that the Ops Oversight Committee have oversight for the metrics. The Personnel Committee would tie to that. Now both groups are reviewing those metrics, and it's going to happen the way Elena said. We're going to bring forward where we've performed, what top quartile looks like, where we're setting the targets, and give the board the opportunity to give us the feedback as to whether we put them in the right levels, if we're striving for the level of performance that you all are seeking, and you'll have that opportunity to give us that feedback in both the committee meetings and at the full board meeting.
And just to clarify, regardless of methodology and approach by previous administration, and when I mean by administration, I'm talking trustees, what I heard more than once is that there still is a third party that we refer to benchmark metrics. Is that a fair
We
statement?
have changed third
Whether
parties.
we've hired Scar Matten or not, there
We have
still is a third party that we're using against standards. Standards are not lowered just because we're not hiring a third party. And this, because we've had several third parties, I believe.
We had one third party in years past, and we've brought a new third party on to do that work for us. But we will have a third party who can help us focus on utility-aligned metrics.
Right.
H. Bailey?
H. Bailey is the name of the firm.
Okay. So again, different approaches, bottom line,
Same approach,
same approach, just different,
just slightly different.
different resources, but third-party analysis, just to make sure they're industry standards.
Correct. And then the metrics have now been set up to be reviewed by two committees, not just one committee.
Okay. So there's more input.
Correct. That's
Okay.
right, ma'am.
All right. Any other comments? Dr. Romero?
Okay, I had three basic things. I wanted to talk about SAFE for a minute. So can you just remind me of what that number means, the 0.84 target, for example?
Yes, ma'am. We use a lot of acronyms, but you can think of SAFE as, in a year, how frequently does a customer experience an outage? So what a 0.84 means that, on average, a customer experiences less than one outage per year, right? So that's essentially how mathematically we arrive at SAFE.
Okay, and outages are for whatever reason?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And maybe this is an example of me giving feedback. And I know SAFE and SAIDI are industry standards, but because, and I just want to highlight the people last week who got, I guess it was a lot of people were without power because somebody drove their car off the road into a pole, which unfortunately isn't something you can stop. And that power was back on in 45 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't even know how you got there in 45 minutes. So I don't know. It just seems to me that, is there any way that in the industry people put together SAIDI and SAFE so that if we have a lot of outages and maybe they're of that type, but they're resolved really quickly, that we would somehow get more credit for that?
Yes, so I guess the industry came up with these benchmark years and years ago. And so when we look at SAIDI and SAFE, we're benchmarking against other utilities. But what's included, like you mentioned, is car hit poles, animals get in the lines. And then even if we, which is strange, if we planned outages to replace systems and we take out customers intentionally because the benchmarks were set up in a certain way, that even those outages count in the calculation. So it's a work in progress, but we have, a dozen of metrics that we target to kind of look at pockets for improvement. And really the duration piece also ties to our outage map so that, on blue sky days, if there's an outage, then we use that calculation to put in there that, hey, on average, it probably will take an hour. And so when you look at the duration, it's an average of the system outages, so that's why it's around 60, about an hour, and then we got the power back on within 45 minutes for that outage.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems to me that for customers, duration is a lot more important than how many, when so many of them are things. Because that same night, there was somebody else who ran off the road into a pole, and a bunch of people in another part of the city were out.
Yes.
So I don't know. That's just something. It concerns me that that's something we're at risk for when it's probably something we have the least control over.
Well, and again, I mean, going back to, thinking about these metrics in a flex, manner, we're going to be around one, whether we're 0.05 of a decimal off or not. You want to be, I mean, that, and our performance has been pretty consistent in that regard. We're usually under an hour a year on duration. Our performance has been pretty consistent in that regard. If you just look at the history of our metrics, high storm years, low storm years, we manage, within a pretty tight, I think, range of metrics. What we started doing, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago when I was over the wires part of the business, is getting focused in on the exceptions to the average experience. How are you dealing with those neighborhoods that are seeing a higher level of outages than the average outage in San Antonio? And there are ways we can measure that and ways we could focus in on that as the metric the board wants to pay attention to. So this kind of gets into some of the how else could we measure ourselves
And
conversation, but
and if I could just add before, I know Dr. Romero has additional comments, and I guess that's where Dr. Romero is leaning towards. This is an opportunity, again, not that we're moving the post to benefit us, but realistically, if we're going to be measured, it should be items within our control, not third-party environmental, like extreme weather or something that what she just explained. So as we're going through the committee process, if you could suggest, at least maybe suggest a different approach, we would be very open to. And I'm sorry, Dr. Meyer, I want to take from your time. Please continue.
Okay, just a comment, I guess just switching gears entirely back to, I think it was slide 17 with the city comparison. And I know that it got brought up at council about maybe we should look at this in terms of energy burden and that kind of thing, but I welcome additional information on this, but the bill comparison is still the bill comparison. And if we start bringing in things like cost of service or the energy burden, it gets pretty nuanced there. If it's not as if it necessarily would be better if the rates were even lower, which probably doesn't even make sense. But I'm just saying, I think we need to be really careful about how we present that information and exactly what it means, because this is the bill comparison, and nothing is going to change that. So I just want to say that. My last question then, for slide 7. So I'm doing quick calculations here, and I think I'm right. If you divide these out and you see the average, so I appreciate that you've added the number of accounts now. So now that we know how many accounts there are and how much is owed in each box, you can kind of figure out the average for each of those boxes, and they're wildly different. And so I was just wondering why that is. So the big important box, we're looking at an average of about $540, which is less than half of the average for people who are on a payment plan. So why is that? What's going on?
Thank you, Dr. Romero, and I think this goes to what Rudy was talking about earlier. Sorry, Deanna Hardwick, Chief Customer Strategy Officer. So the biggest thing is we have targeted the highest and oldest accounts for our outreach for the longest time. So what you're seeing in the 2 gray boxes is where we've continued to prioritize our efforts. It's on those old bills, and it's also on the ones that are the high bills. So like if you think of what's in the inactive accounts, some of that is going to be companies that filed for bankruptcy, for instance. So the more we work down through that list, then the lower that average past due amount is. And that goes exactly to Rudy's point, and we can show you kind of the breakdown in each of the boxes to show you what the age of that debt looks like. And based on the average account usage, you're seeing, what's in that group is the customers who are 3 to 4 months past due, as opposed to these other customers that we've already been able to work with one way or the other. And they have just tremendously higher balances.
Okay, and it seems like maybe some of the accounts in the big blue box are maybe people who just never paid their last bill?
The last one, so, yeah, sometimes it's just how the month ends. So I think it was, the 31st was on a Monday, wasn't it, one Monday or Tuesday? But it really falls on how the month ends. But we do have some slow payers, so those are customers who consistently will pay late fees, but they're gonna pay before we get to the first reminder. And we'll provide a breakdown so you can see that a little bit more.
Well, when I said their last bill, I actually meant their last bill before they just shut down their account or moved away or something like that, because there's so many, but they're each relatively small. So it seems like that would be a fairly big percentage of that, of people who just said, okay, I'm moving out and I'm not paying my last bill to CPS.
That's some of it. Actually, more of what it is, it's people who, it's just based on their budget cycle, not on our billing cycle, so that they're gonna pay whenever they get the money versus whenever the 30th falls in the month. So it really just depends. It's more just our customers who are paying based on their schedule, not so much the people who are about to move out. But we can provide all of that level of detail.
And I think if you can clarify, and that's the percentage that historically, regardless of winter storm or what is that average that historically doesn't pay regardless of extreme conditions?
So that number has changed, and we can show that breakdown. I think prior to the pandemic, we were looking at about 15,000 accounts that were consistently past due at about $5 million. But we have, because of the pandemic and because of the age of the debt, it went for 3 years before we were able to take anything. And that's what we were trying to do all of the outreach for. And when we benchmark ourselves, we just had a benchmark report last week, as a matter of fact, and we are looking about the same in terms of percentage of customers that are active in accordance with our benchmark community. So we can share that level of detail as well.
Okay, thank you. One more quick question. Any other questions, Mayor? Any comments? I do, before we go back to Mr. Steen. Just real quick. Sorry. I mean, we've all taken turns. So I did want to say there was a couple of action items under slide 3 that I want to make sure that we're mindful of, which I think also is why we gained the confidence of majority of the city council, as well as the people who are actively participating and show up to meetings and all the feedback we've gotten from the community. The need to execute the generation plan of the future. Agile in process, but we have a plan. So I think that's a really key item that we must not forget as we enter 2024. The other item is engage with their community on rate design and adjustment. There still is a big interest to ensure that there's a process for that feedback. And so I want to make sure that we're mindful that we have that feedback as we continue those discussions in some form or fashion. And then number 3, the pursuit of grants and other new revenue sources with partners, which was new. I think, again, we got a lot of feedback from City Council that was really grateful that we've identified opportunities to, again, have less burden on citizens. And so I want to make sure that we continue. I know that we have a couple of pending, and so I want to make sure that, again, this is a priority. And so these are, again, in my opinion, in addition to all the conversation today that has been really good, but I just want to highlight that I really sincerely appreciate that we continue to find ways to execute these fairly well in 2024. Mr. Steen, the floor is yours.
Just a quick question from Ms. Hardwick. What were those figures again? You said what did $15 million represent?
That $15 million pre-COVID was what our average past due accounts receivable was. It was $5 million for 15,000 accounts is what we were at going into the pandemic.
5 million
and 15,000 accounts. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Just clarifying that.
Yes, sir.
If there's a comment by the mayor? Yes, sir.
Sure. So as it relates to energy cost burden, I do think it's something that we should discuss. But I think our job at this dais needs to be 100% driven towards how do we make sure that this utility is in the best position possible to provide our residents and businesses with reliable energy. The energy cost burden is more of a council discussion, and unfortunately, I wish we could control the energy cost burden simply with the price that we charge for energy. But if that impairs our ability to continue to provide reliable electricity, then what's the point? I think it should inform the investments that we make into things like REAP, et cetera. But the same thing with the housing cost burden. I wish we could control it simply by, ensuring that we're building affordable housing. But if we don't lift people's wages in this community, we won't. We're basically postponing the issue for the next generation. And so I think we should continue to look at that. But when I, think about whether or not we're making the investments necessary, I'm simply going to be looking at the reliability. At the council dais, we're going to be looking at the ways that we can ease that burden through the programs, et cetera. And, I just wanted to make that point because I think we could get misled into thinking that that's actually something that we can control. If we tried to control for it just here, we would simply be digging ourselves a ditch that we can get out of. I am glad to see that slide, though, with respect to what our cost is for our customers. We should always strive to be on the low end. I'm glad we're number one in terms of affordable electricity rates. We should try to stay there as much as we can, but we've got to do that as well as continue to make the proper investments just so we can make sure that this energy system does its basic job.
Thank you, Mayor, for those comments. Thank you, everybody. Any other further comments on this item? Okay, on that, so if we can go ahead and move over to item number 8, which is Winter Demand Response Initiative. Mr. Tijeria.
Good afternoon, Chair and Board of Trustees. For folks listening online, my name is Jonathan Tigrina. I'm the Vice President of Corporate Development, and I'm glad to be with you this afternoon to talk to you about a new initiative that we just launched this month regarding our Winter Demand Response Program. Here's the agenda. We'll walk through the approach to DR. We'll talk specifically about some benchmarking we did in preparation for this program, and then go into details around the program offerings and implementation results that we have up to this point. I want to start off with making the connection back to the board measures that we were just talking about around, in particular, operational evolution. A common theme we have been seeing over the last 2 years now really is this continued need to be responsive to rather market signals, customer demand, or dealing with the way we handle stress onto the system. This particular program really hits on 3 big things. Around 1, it's a new resiliency opportunity available for both our traditional commercial and industrial customers, as well as our residential customers. This is an expanded reach for a portfolio of programs that fall under our demand response initiatives. And this one in particular, just to make sure we're clear, is not going to be funded through the STEP program. This is actually funded through the fuel budget, as we will not take benefit for the energy savings here, because the energy savings that we do take account for is for summer demand and not winter. And it's simple as summer demand is much more than winter, so you don't double dip on your savings. In particular, want to give a little bit of context for folks first learning about our demand response program, or sometimes referred to as our DR program. This program has played a key role really for the last 2 decades within the CPS Energy market here. It does a couple of things. It contributes to the ability to be responsive to rather market or grid conditions, in particular during extreme weather, such as the summertime with the heat. In particular, we're taking that same characteristic and applying that logic to the winter. Although the ERCOT RFP for additional generation for this winter was ultimately eliminated, this did play into our thought process of how quickly we would be able to respond and offer a program. I'm happy to report that the team, in essence, over a 4-week period, not only created and implemented this program, but in return, up to this point, we have about 65 megawatts of available committed capacity into this program. So another way to think about this is that over the 4 to 6 week period that we went from ideation, creation, implementation, we in essence created a peaking unit here in San Antonio without making that type of an investment, which is a big compliment to the team and their ability to be responsive. Wouldn't want to talk about a program without telling you we did our due diligence from a benchmarking standpoint. We went out to the market to see what type of similar programs might be available or might complement the thought process as we went into the design phase. This is publicly available data. We went out and looked at some of the TDSPs, or known as the Transmission Distribution Service Providers in Texas. And we found that there was 2 programs that were being created by 2 of the bigger ones, CenterPoint Energy and Encore. And I won't go line by line, but you'll see here in particular the biggest requirement that they had from their programs was around that middle line around the dispatch criteria. In particular, their programs are only available should the grid actually trigger some type of an EA emergency from ERCOT. Those programs, you'll see the megawatts that are kind of projected there from each one that they're hoping to participate with, or at least what their market might be able to give them. You'll see that it runs at different time periods as well too, which is probably another big criteria that I want to point out. But in short, you saw similar entities out in the market looking for the ability to dispatch usage and partner with their customers to create their programs. For us in particular, again, mentioned we have at this point about 20 years of information with our customers and experience on our demand and response program. I will continue to say that we have one of the most, if not the most robust summer demand response programs. And we took a lot of that institutional knowledge and experience and applied it to the creation of our winter program. Want to highlight really the program options here that you'll see on the chart. We have options 1, option 2, and option 3. Option 1 and option 2 run very similar to our summer programs, where it's about the agility, or the ability, I should say, for the customer to respond. And this is specifically on the CNI, commercial and industrial customers. So we send a signal to the customer asking for them to reduce their usage. If they participate in option 1, that means they are responding to us within 30 minutes. They're already curtailing their usage. We have 2 options, whether to do it within 30 minutes or within 60 minutes. And rightfully so, the quicker they're able to respond, the more quicker we're able to take action and solve for. We actually pay them a little higher incentive per kW. Option 3 is a new program that we're offering specifically for winter. Historically, we have not provided any type of incentive for large commercial customers that would use some type of a backup generator as a way to offset their use. And the primary reason for that is that in the summertime, when you have a program like STEP that's looking not only at energy reduction but also emission reduction, as well as the 3 or 4 other goals that we have, it kind of felt wrong, if you will, to incentivize a customer to run off of a backup generator if they were going to be putting more emissions out into the environment. So for the summertime, for the wintertime, excuse me, we are using some of the benchmarking we did out from the state, and we are actually offering that program only during a ERCOT-initiated EA level emergency 1, 2, or 3. So we will not be using this as a normal option. This is really an additional tool in the process that we would work through, being responsive to some type of a grid emergency for the wintertime. This is new again for our customers for this particular winter. We'll use it as a learning opportunity to see how customers respond, but we're excited to at least be able to offer an option that previously customers could not participate in. In general, I would just mention there's about 90 megawatts of projected load that we think we could, from a market size perspective, that's available here in San Antonio. That's about half the size of our winter program. And for folks listening for the first time, I guess the biggest difference there is, your winter demand, highest usage tends to be in the morning hours, 6 to 10 a.m., whereas in the summertime, it's obviously in the later hours, 3 to 7 p.m. So your usage, you're already starting at a smaller delta, if you will, from your summer usage. A lot of familiarity with this program. As part of our winter demand response program, all of our residential thermostat program participants are automatically enrolled. We actually sent out communications to our customers last week, notifying them of the winter program being launched. It will work exactly like the summer program, where customers have full autonomy to opt out of a program from the ease of their thermostat. We will send the communication like we normally do via the thermostats, and should we call the program and should they participate, we're offering an additional $20 incentive to that customer. So if you are thinking about buying a new thermostat over this holiday season, I recommend you buying a smart thermostat that can be opted into our program. You'll sign up through our website at cpsenergy.com. We'll give you a one-time $85 credit when you first sign up and bring your brand new thermostat. And we will give you a $20 credit if you participate in the winter program, and then a $30 credit for the summer program. So customers now in theory, could get a $50 year-round credit for participating in both winter and summer demand response programs on the thermostat side. As part of the initiative, we're also taking this chance to pilot a smaller program within winter demand response. Over the last 2 years, we have seen an influx of customer-owned battery storage systems being installed at the residential units. There's about 1,800 that are interconnected within our service territory, which equates to just under 10 megawatts. For context, 1 megawatt feeds about 200 homes during peak, to kind of give a reference point. So we think there's just under 2,000 potential homes that could be fed off of that 9.8 megawatts of power that's being stored by a battery at a residential unit. What we're going to do for this program is we have also done an outreach to all 1,800, sent them a letter educating them about an email about the program and the qualifications and the program details. We've asked them to respond to us to opt into this pilot program. And should they participate with us, we will offer them a $20 incentive per event. The way this program will work, it'll be very similar to our behavioral demand response program that we do in the summer. So this one will be all, there's a process for where we would do outreach. So for example, if we knew we wanted to call upon them for tomorrow, there'd be a communication that went out to them today notifying them of their need to utilize their system for tomorrow. We will then take their performance and measure and validate their performance. And if there was a shift in their usage where we could see it from the meter perspective, then that would qualify them for that incentive. This, again, is a brand new program for us where we're leveraging customer investments that have already been made and finding a way to be creative to partner with them to help us control our demand on the system, as well as offering a program for customers where they're seeking opportunities to leverage their investment. We'll take all these lessons learned and hopefully from there trigger or create an opportunity for this type of program to participate in our summer DR as we prep for summer of 2024. Where we're at is we're in full-blown customer enrollment phase now. You'll see the various steps that we did over the last 4 to 6 weeks to get to this point. To date, as I mentioned, or I don't think I mentioned, to date, we have about 65 megawatts committed in both residential and commercial customers, with more coming daily at this point. Those 65 megawatts equate to about 13,000 homes that we can power during peak. The breakdown right now is about 24 megawatts on the C&I side with another 42 on the residential side. Would not be doing my job if I didn't give thanks to a lot of our internal team members, our key account team, our legal team, our energy market and supply team. A lot of folks came together quickly over those 6 weeks periods to create and implement this program. And again, to be at a point now where we can say we have generated enough capacity and partnership with our customers to equate to what would equate to a peaking unit is something to be excited about. The program will run from December 1st through the end of March, so we will be continuing to enroll customers throughout the next 3 months, and hopefully have more to report out as we get through this winter season. With that, I will stop and happy to take any questions.
Any questions by the board? Go ahead. Dr. Romero?
So if residences are on this and they get the message, they're asked to lower their thermostat to what?
It's actually raise their thermostat. I'm sorry, lower. Yes, lower. Thank you. Went backwards. That's correct, Dr. Romero. So it will run just like the summer program where we send the signal and there's a 2-degree change. So if you are at 70 degrees, it'll go down to 68. And it will run in that same cycle of the compressor being on, compressor being off, running through the cycle. So we're asking you to reduce it 2 to 3 degrees during that period.
Oh, so it doesn't matter if you're heating your home at 75, you're only asked to bring it down to 73.
Correct. Yeah, the program itself is designed to reduce the usage that's being used. So yeah, we do not predictate what actual temperature. We ask for a 2 to 3 degree variance from where you're currently at. The same logic applies for the summer program.
Okay. How does it work for residences that have a home generator? I don't even know how it works, but if you can just say,
sure,
I'm going to go off electricity and go to my generator, would you have the same restriction on them that you would on companies because of the
Yeah, so currently no program offering for residential generators. Right now, the focus is on the energy storage systems currently at the homes. In theory, though, yes, ma'am, it would work the same way. So they would run their natural gas generator, for example, and basically shift. There's a transfer switch that's done at the meter so that we ensure that there's no backfeed into the system and so that our operators can still do what they need to from a safety perspective. But in theory, yes, they could do their own voluntary shift, but currently there's not an incentive program for them.
Oh, okay, all right. And then last thing, just aside from this, I assume that part of it is when we get in these situations, there would just be a general call for people to, now you have me confused, to lower their thermostat.
Sorry about that, yes.
And would that be the same, like 2 degrees, or would we say lower it to 63? Do we have like a standard message for that now?
We do. So at last week's press conference, I know the corporate communications team also leveraged the yellow, green, red scenarios for winter. I don't know the fact, so I can follow up with y'all. But yes, at the bare minimum, it's asking everyone to reduce 2 to 3 degrees, but I can follow up if there's an actual number.
Okay, because in the summer, there was an actual number.
I think there was.
It was,
Melissa's gonna.
oh,
69. 69 is the
Actual number.
actual number that will be used for winter communications.
that's what we're telling people to lower their thermostat to?
2 to 3 degrees or 69. That's correct.
Okay, that seems really high if we're in an emergency, to ask people to lower it to 69 degrees.
Yeah,
I've never even had my thermostat as high as 69 degrees when the heat is on.
this is why you're a great customer. Yeah.
Okay.
Additional feedback by Melissa Sorolla.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to clarify. That would actually be an everyday conservation level recommended temperature. But as we go through the stages, of course, then we would, very similar to what we did in the summer, would ask folks to just lower their temperatures as comfortable and safely as they can do.
Mr. Steen has comments. Mr. Steen?
So, Mr. Tiarina, thank you for your well-done presentation. And I'm learning that the VP of Corporate Development comes with an important and diverse portfolio. And you seem to be taking a major role in so many of CPS Energy's initiatives, and I commend you on your leadership and commitment to these assignments.
Thank you.
Your presentation, while informative, is admittedly light on the financial aspects of this winter demand response initiative, and of course, this is a major area of interest for me. If we could put up slide 3. And at the bottom, under program funding, it is this statement: this new winter DR program will be funded through our fuel budget. You've somewhat talked about that, but I'd like a little bit more detail on that. For instance, we're nearing the end of our fiscal year 2024 on January 31st. How much do you expect will be spent on DR this fiscal year?
Yeah, so
Then can you break out that expenditure between the summer DR and winter DR, and then explain what exactly you mean when you state it will be funded through our fuel budget, and please explain to our listeners who are CPS Energy customers how they're going to participate in paying for this new winter DR initiative.
Sure. Yeah, I'll answer with first explaining the difference of how it's funded. So the fuel budget is the budget that we use to both buy the fuel for our generation resources, power on the market, as well as any of our programs from a hedging or ensuring that we have enough power for our demand here at a local level. The expenses for this program will actually hit the budget in fiscal year 25 because we will not do any payouts until the end of program life. So for this program running December 1 through March 30th, we'll participate during that program, we'll measure and validate, and then usually payment happens anywhere from 30 to 45 days after, which is very traditional, the same way we do our summer program. The summer program is paid by the initiative that the board and city council approved for our step funding. So that is a pass-through into the fuel payment that allows us to pay for programs around our energy demand and energy efficiency programs. And so the reason why we do not leverage that budget or that that program for winter is because, as I was mentioning, the summer program, or actually, I'm sorry, STEP as a whole is about reducing the overall demand of the grid. And currently, the way you measure that is based off of your highest usage period. So the 4 CP, the 4 coincidental peaks that you hear about during the summertime. You traditionally do not hit that during your winter periods. So it wouldn't be appropriate to use the funding that we have for energy reduction for a program that is not really reducing the overall footprint from a demand perspective. So again, we will not take credit for any winter reduction into our STEP portfolio. For the summer program, there is the available reporting that we can send to everyone. It's available on our website as well as the sustainabilities page on the City of San Antonio that shows our program and the performance of all of our programs. In particular for winter, Mr. Steen, unless someone is going to correct me, I think that this is still accurate. The program, again, it will not have any payments issued before the end of the program. So we will take the collateral of the whole and pay out at the end. On the high end, if we look at it, this is going to cost us to the tune of, at current state, at about $4.5 million as a way to mitigate risk from market exposure or underperformance. So at 65 megawatts with 23 megawatts, even though I'm using the high end, so the number may be lower, if the example I like to use is that on the commercial side, if they average 1 megawatt of reduction during the entire period, that equates to about a $45,000 credit going back to that one customer. On the residential side, you'll see the $20 credit for each of the 2 programs, with one obviously having more opportunities for participation. So total all in right now, we're up to the tune of about $4.5 million for a program that creates, in essence, a peaker for us to have availability to the tune of about 65 megawatts.
All right, so that's 4.5 just for this winter. That's what, when you've run the numbers on it, that's what's going to cost. What is the summer program?
I'd have to go back and check what our summer program is.
Ballpark? What is it?
It ranges, sir, based off of performance, so I'd want to give you the latest information.
Yeah, scale-wise, this is about 20% of our summer program in terms of demand response. We're usually up over 200 megawatts during our summer program, and this is, like I said, about 65 if we get it. It's the first time we're doing it, and I will just remind you, Trustee Steen, this was an action item came out of the Emergency Preparedness, Committee that the mayor established for us to go out and seek more aggressive conservation programs for winter demand response to ensure that we were able to be as flexible as we can be. So, we went down the road, the community told us they wanted us to go down to formalize this program.
All right.
I should also mention, just for clarity and transparency, it's only $4 to $4.5 million if we call an event. If the need is not there and we do not call these events, it gets reduced quite a bit.
But if a customer's listening and saying, how am I paying for this? You're saying, is it through their fuel adjustment charge on their bill?
That is correct. It'd be no different than the fuel they pay for to power any of our generation facilities.
Okay, so, and we can discuss this at another time, but within that fuel adjustment charge, we have things like Winter Storm Uri, is that correct?
Yeah.
Aren't we paying for that partly through the?
There's a specific regulatory asset for Winter Storm Uri. That is not part of the fuel charge.
Okay, but STEP is in there.
STEP is in there.
All right, but to be clear, this DR program funding is not encompassed within STEP. That
is correct.
I wasn't clear on that. All right, please put up slide 4. So focusing on the photo, we see an oversized CPS Energy check, and it's you can't read it, but it's dated last month. It's for over $368,000, and it's being presented to the North Side Independent School District. NISD is an exemplary school district and worthy of support. But is this large check being bestowed on them for lowering their thermostats during the string of hot days we had last summer? That's what they're getting this money for?
Yeah, it's more than just thermostats. So all of our school districts, well, the majority of our school districts here locally participate at some level. Northside ISD in particular was the #1 performing school district last summer for us. So it's more than just thermostats. They're looking at their chillers, their operating system, multiple assets that they manage, obviously, to help reduce demand during those periods.
Right, and so I'd like to know, I know sometimes we run into a confidentiality thing, but I'd like to know about who are the largest recipients of these checks that we're sending out. Northside ISD, Dr. Mackey, I think it's the largest school district within our service area and the fourth largest in Texas. And I read in the San Antonio report that pursuant to its summer DR program for the 8 years between 2011 and 2019, CPS Energy gave Northside a total of $3.12 million in incentives, more than any other school district in San Antonio. And so it's something to think about. Pursuant to our summer DR program, CPS Energy has paid and is paying school districts like Northside Independent School District to voluntarily reduce the amount of electricity used during high demand periods. And would you say that in the summer, when students are out of classes and schools aren't operating at full capacities, districts are well positioned to take advantage of demand response? And isn't it a worthwhile question to ask why CPS Energy is paying huge sums of money to school districts to lower their thermostats in the summertime when school's out?
Yeah, Mr. Steen, I think that is, I think to be fair, I think we have seen an influx in the amount of schools being constructed and utilized year-round at this point, that it's more than just, when the traditional school year ends. What we are seeing from our school districts is continued participation on programs to help reduce demand at facilities that are operational. So our demand response program and all of our STEP programs, there's a measurement and verification process. So there is demand that is being reduced, regardless if it's a full, 107,000 student population during the school year, or if it's a 50,000 school, students for the summer. Again, the importance around the STEP program is that there is a third-party measurement and verification where we are able to partner with customers like the school districts to provide them a program where it can help both us and still maintain operational function for their students.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm almost through. So please put up slide 9. When you review where you are regarding winter DR implementation, you indicate that item 3, complete financial analysis, has been finalized. And I don't recall seeing that. You all sent a lot of stuff to us. I don't know if I got that. So have you provided it to the trustees?
Not to the trustees. That was done for internal purposes for the alignment around should we execute a program.
Is it available to us? Could we get that?
Yeah, I'll take that as a follow-up action item with the team, sir.
Would it be available to the public?
I don't know that answer, so I'll find out.
All right, thank you. And finally, and I'm just getting my bearings on this DR program, but is it accurate to describe this DR initiative as a program where CPS Energy customers are paid to reduce their consumption? And I think in other parts of the country, it's relative to an administratively set baseline of consumption. In other words, it'd be the average of the 10 most recent non-event business days, but we don't do it that way.
No, sir, we don't do it that way. We take the performance of their average over the X amount of events that we trigger. So, for example, if we have 5 events over the winter period, we'll take their performance over those 5 events, create an average based off of a baseline for their usage and their reduction, and pay off per that reduction.
All right.
So it's specific per event that we trigger on our side.
All right. So I'm aware of another approach to enhancing resiliency for customers during the hottest summer and coldest winter days, and it's called dynamic pricing. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. Dynamic pricing means that when a critical peak pricing event is declared, some customers face higher prices during certain times of the day. So simply put, a commercial or industrial customer isn't paid to reduce, but instead charged more for consuming during these periods. So what are your thoughts on that approach?
Yeah, I think in general, as we continue to evolve from a products perspective, the partnership along with Chad's team in particular from a pricing perspective are things that we've talked about the last few months during the rate process. The idea to have additional programs or tariffs or rate options available for our customers are going to be things we will continue to work towards. But I think we've also, I think we've done a good job to also educate that we do have some limitations about what we can do off of the current digital systems that we have in place. But yes, I do see us going towards that way, aligned with Vision 2027 and whatever comes out of all the good work being done for 2030, 2040, and 2050.
So, yeah, so I think that dynamic pricing is something that CPS Energy, you're saying you've looked at that, at implementing that. And I would think it would be something we would direct toward our commercial and industrial customers.
Yeah, I think that's to be determined, sir. I think in general, the market signals will help create these product offerings that will ultimately bring for recommendation and approval.
Mr. Steen, do you have any other additional comments?
Final thought that it would be, at least it would be worthwhile to move, I'm thinking, from a strictly DR program to maybe a hybrid program involving not only DR but also dynamic pricing.
Sure, we can take that into your feedback, sir. Thank you.
I believe Rudy has a comment, and then Dr. Romero has a closing comment. Go ahead, Rudy.
Well, the only, and Jonathan said it, I'm not sure the board picked up on it, but for the same reasons, we have limitations on tiered rates, which is a form of dynamic pricing. Our technology today just doesn't allow us to bill in that manner. We can't send price signals through the meter the way you need to do for dynamic pricing. So we're 4 years out at a minimum from the technology capabilities to go down that road. But everything's on the table. We can create pricing programs however we think our customers would be responsive to it. And as we have conversations about the future of STEP, we're in year 2 of a 5-year STEP program. Board can always change course, as we go into the future on how we structure STEP to do, however we want to do these type of programs. So again, we follow the board's lead, and those are conversations I think that will come, sir.
Dr. Romero?
Actually, I just had a quick question now for Ms. Ramirez. And I realize we have the limitation because of our digital system, but is that something legally that is allowable, that we would say something like that, say that during periods of high demand that commercial and industrial customers only would pay higher rates?
I think we couldn't say it the way you just said it, but I would like to look at it because I don't think as an objective it's unlawful because it would be a voluntary selection of a program. But I think that you are keying in on there would be some legal parameters we would have to make sure that we stay within.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, I forgot to tell you, thank you for this. I also feel very relieved that we have this program in place, and I'm really impressed with how you put it together and how quickly you moved on this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before we conclude, because this was a very exciting conversation, Mr. Steen earlier pointed out the need to be descriptive of words. We referred to DR several times, but not everybody probably knew what DR stood for. And it really is WDR, which is winter winter demand response. It's really WDR, if we can add that to the glossary. I know, but you just kept saying DR. I just want to be clear for the public. Here's just a couple of things. If you go, and right now I have my mobile phone. Right on number 4 item is CPS Energy Angels. Since you just rolled out this program, it would be nice if you can consider just putting winter readiness initiatives or rebates up in front and center on the website. And then the other thing that and maybe this is more directed to my colleague, Mr. Steen, I guess where I need clarity, Mr. Steen, is I understand our concern of not charging. If I understand correctly, your concern is the fuel charge. Is that correct, Mr. Steen? At least from everything that I heard from your conversation. Is that a fair statement?
Well,
No, I just want to, yes or no, I'm sorry.
I'm not going to do it, yes.
Okay, well, at least that's what I understood. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is I feel like we're in a catch-22. On one hand, we have to be mindful of those with means and those without means. At the end of the day, with means or without means, we want to make sure that we're not adding more cost. And so either we, A, have programs where we volunteer we volunteer to pay, and I choose to do that as a citizen, and I volunteer to opt in to either a summer program or now a winter program. And if I understand this correctly, the whole long-term intent is for us not to spend additional money to build a plant, to add more costs. And so I really commend Mr. Steen to point out a lot of these things, because I do hear him. He wants to make sure that we don't add more costs, that people truly understand that you're paying for this. But if I understand correctly, these programs are all volunteer. And then there are some fixed costs that are not volunteer. That's just the cost of being a customer CPS. And so at least that's what I'm hearing. And I just want to make sure that I understand that my responsibility is to understand we should be looking for programs where people get to volunteer, who choose to conserve, who choose to pay into a program, and who are responsible citizens to pay their bills. And so I think that's what I keep hearing. And I don't know if anybody wants to add anything to
Madam
that.
Chair, let me bifurcate the conversation here. The folks who participate in the program, that that participate in our thermostat program, that sign up to to reduce their use as part of the program, that part is volunteer. Mr. Steen is absolutely accurate. We look at this as a sourcing strategy. Whether we produce the power, whether we buy the power on the open market, or pay customers to conserve that avoids that cost, it's all part of the same generation plan. So all customers participate, pay fuel. And whatever cost ultimately, which we'll report to the board after the fact, so everybody understands what we accomplished with this new program, everybody pays that cost. So to the extent we pay out on this program, those collective costs will flow through fuel after a process of verifying that what was done, and everybody participates in that. So that is a non-kind of voluntary deal. The voluntary portion is those who say, yes, I want in, and give us the 65 megawatts that we can utilize as part of our generation plan. Does that make sense?
It makes perfectly sense.
Just wanted to clarify.
No, it makes sense to me. I just want to make sure we address his concern as far as make sure we're very transparent when we present this information, make sure our customers understand who's paying for what. I think that's what I keep hearing from him. Please make sure that you're clear where this money is coming from and who's opting in and opting out and the cost of doing business. So I want to make sure that is addressed. And then Mr. Steen asked a lot of questions. So I guess my request would be that all of that is annotated in some capacity, and then additional information that requested that we all get it and understand it, and if there's a need to run it through a committee or present it at a next either February meeting, I would like to resurrect this so that we're all clear and who's paying for what and what is the benefit, or potentially maybe not the benefits of these programs. But for now, thank you, Jonathan. You answered a lot of questions. Thank you, Mr. Steen, and all the trustees for all your questions today and comments. On that note, I think we're pretty good on this item, which is number 8. And now we're going to move on to number 9, which is CEO recognition.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. Today, I've got a couple of groups that I'm going to be recognizing, and I will make it quick. Today, I'm going to be recognizing our third quarter Core Value Award honorees and our Gas Solutions Pressure Control team. First and foremost, I want to emphasize the importance of our core values. It's not that is the how to what we do. They serve as guiding principles that shape our culture, drive our decision-making, and enable us to deliver exceptional service to our community. We created this recognition program to highlight individuals and groups whose actions are outstanding examples of our core values in action and are in alignment with our Vision 2027 strategy. These individuals we are honoring today consistently model our core values, earning the trust and respect of their colleagues, which is why their peers and colleagues nominated them. They consistently go above and beyond expectations, delivering outstanding results. Please join me in congratulating our third quarter Core Value Award honorees. Yeah. No, sorry. Gas folks will be next. Not yet. Specific, I want to be specific, I want to give you specific recognition. All right. Yeah. Shanna's on a, she's on the clock. Okay, now, next I'd like to recognize our Gas Solutions Pressure Control Team, who is responsible for maintaining our gas system pressures, which ensures the gas keeps flowing. Over the past few months, the team completed weatherization activities to prepare our gas distribution system for winter operations and ensure that the critical gate stations serving our power plants and our distribution system in general are ready for extreme cold weather. Before we clap and congratulate them, I just want to say that I've worked for one of the largest gas utilities in the state of Texas in a prior life. I am still amazed at the work our gas employees do. We're the fourth largest gas utility in the state of Texas, and we do it with a fraction of the resources a lot of gas utilities do, and we do it better. And these folks are the ones who, and it happens every now and then. We'll see the pressure start to drop from our suppliers, and these folks have to go out and change, volumes and increase pressure and do the things that we do to ensure that we don't lose our gas system. If we lost pressure at one of our gate stations, you're talking about thousands of customers ultimately who would have to be relit because their pressure dropped so low that we got to go out and do thousands of relights. So these folks help ensure that we stop that risk before it impacts our customers. And to his credit, Richard Lujan, our VP of our gas group, sent me a whole bunch of statistics that I don't have time to read today. But you all are excellent in every way, and we appreciate, especially going into the winter, we appreciate you sitting on those regulator stations. When it's 25 degrees outside and everybody's in their home, you all are out in the field ensuring that our system is protected. So thank you. You all do an excellent job, and we're proud to recognize you here today.
Item number 10, as everybody's walking back, review the action items. Ms. Ramirez, there were several.
Yes, I will first go over the open action items that remain open prior to this meeting. We had a request from the Vice Chair for consideration or evaluation of REAP and ADP consolidation for efficiency purposes. That topic is being considered by CPS Energy as it does its discussion of changes to the REAP and ADP program. So I expect that matter to remain open through the first quarter as management team discusses that matter. I have a request from the chair for consideration of additional criteria for qualification requirements for ADP and REAP. That topic is also being considered by CPS Energy in its discussions on changes to the REAP and ADP programs. So I also expect that to remain open through the first quarter. Next, I have a request from the chair for an explanation of its AI policy strategy and framework approach. This topic will be sent to the Technology and Resiliency Committee for discussion and development. I expect this item to remain open until the next Technology and Resiliency Committee meeting, and I can get confirmation from the committee chair that that's an acceptable plan to them. The next item I have is a request from Trustee Steen regarding the mitigations for the top 10 enterprise risks. This information is being collected, and I anticipate it will be delivered to the board through an executive session presentation. I had targeted the January or February board meeting based upon the board meeting schedule, really.
Mr. Steen, is that okay for the January meeting or the February meeting? We might do it for February because there's We haven't had a chance to meet to see what's going to be added to the agenda.
Yes,
But I definitely want to make sure it's a priority.
Yes,
So,
ma'am,
Mr. Steen, once we meet to plan the agenda for January, depending on all the open items, but for sure by February, we should, no later than February. There were some new items added to your list today.
That's okay. I'll go through them. I also have a request from the vice chair to engage with the city of San Antonio on the discussions regarding large load customer strategy. And the chief strategy officer will include this in the discussion for strategy addressing large load customers and update through the Ops Oversight Committee and Technology and Resiliency Committee. I expect this item to remain open until the next Ops Oversight Committee and Technology and Resiliency Committee meetings, and they agree to move that through their committee process. Those were the items from prior to today. For today, I have 9 action items. The first was related to Agenda Item 6, and that was a request from the chair for an annual review of the Operations Oversight Committee and other governance documents for all committees. The second action item I have is from Agenda Item 7, and that was a request from Trustee Steen to add LE and kayak to the appendix of definitions. That was in response to slide 3 of the Q3 report. The third action item I have was also on Agenda Item 7 from Trustee Steen, and that was a request for a copy of the chart from the City of San Antonio that was utilized by Council members White and Castillo in the discussion of wage information as a comparator to the amount of customer bills. So we'll get a copy of that out. The fourth action item I have is on Agenda Item 7. It was a request from Trustee Steen to provide a written description of how we set metrics and targets for the organization. Action Item 5 was from Agenda Item 8 from Trustee Steen, a request for an explanation of the costs and expenses of the summer DR program. I have a related agenda item from the chair that sort of amended this to include a written response to answers on all of the questions that came up during that same agenda item, so I think we can put a written summary together of that. The next action item I have was on Agenda Item 8, and it was from Trustee Steen, a list of all the largest DR program payments. I modified this to include as allowed because of customer confidentiality or any other restrictions. I have the next action item was also on Agenda Item 8, and that was from Trustee Steen, a request for a copy of the financial analysis of the winter DR program to be provided to trustees, and a request for clarity if it's available to the public. So we'll get an explanation of which parts are available to trustees and public and get that information provided. And the last item I have was on Agenda Item 8, and it was a request from the chair to move information or a link regarding the winter DR program to the homepage of the website.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to clarify, I have this straight. The January meeting moves to February. The February meeting moves to March.
No.
And I think that's how we have it on our calendar, so maybe we just need to get that settled, because then it looked like in March, that's when we catch up, and we have 2 meetings in March.
Oh, January?
Because we
Yes.
keep saying January and February meetings.
Sorry, the January meeting is held in the calendar month of February. And I apologize for the meeting changes. We are trying to coordinate so that we can allow some of our trustees and our CEO to be at SA to DC, but that date has changed a couple of times, so I apologize if we're chasing dates. Let me get clarity on the final dates and provide those to all of the trustees in writing.
Okay.
Okay, there was a lot. Mr. Steen, did that cover everything? I just want to make sure. And with all the items being added, I think that, again, is my need for making sure we prioritize so that we know how to form the agenda and stay focused for the new 2020.
Yeah,
the new agenda.
I'll just say January is going to be a really, really busy.
It's been busy all year. What are you talking about? It's been busy. I told my staff today, like, hey, just, no, not my last meeting. I wanted to rest. But on that note, in all seriousness, I just wanted to make sure everything was covered. And thank you, Dr. Romero, for pointing that out. If we could just move to the next item, which is convene to executive session, attorney-client matters, 551.01, and competitive matters, 551.086, B, attorney-client matters, 551.071. Ms. Ramirez?
At this time, the board is going to recess into executive session to discuss matters that have been duly posted under several provisions of Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including those outlined by the chair. At the conclusion of the executive session, the board will reconvene in open session and continue the meeting. It is 2:49 PM as we go into executive session.
When you catch your breath, if you could please bring us back from executive session, Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes, ma'am. It is 3:05 PM and the board has concluded executive session. I can confirm that there were no votes taken and no matters were discussed that were not part of the posted agenda. We have a quorum and all members are present.
Thank you. Item number 12, adjournment. Moved by Dr. Mackey, second by Dr. Romero. That is at 3:05. Again, thank you, everybody, for a great meeting. All in favor? Roll call. Aye. All righty. Thank you. I'd like to officially call the meeting to order. And the meeting is to be held again December the 18th, 2023 at 5:30. And this is a public input session. Do we have a quorum? Can you please confirm a quorum?
We have yourself and Vice Chair Romero. There's no quorum. There's no need for one. We can proceed.
Okay. Number 2, the safety message by Ms. Dana So Today.
Hello, okay. We first wanted to review the evacuation procedures so that we are prepared to be safe in the event of an emergency. If you hear the fire alarm, follow the instructions announced through the PA system. If asked to evacuate, use the glass door exiting out of the boardroom to the outside. If that door is blocked, use the back door. Verbally alert others in the room and evacuate. Then move to the main parking lot in front of the building or the AT&T parking lot over the McCullough-Brooklyn bridges. In the event of a situation like this, our security team will be monitoring the situation and will notify the appropriate emergency services and team members. We also have employees nearby who are trained to administer first aid if needed. Safety is a top priority at CPS Energy, and while we hope this information is never needed, we want to be sure we are always ready.
Thank you for the safety message. Item number 3, public comment.
Public comment provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts on any CPS Energy-related item. We will invite pre-registered speakers to speak, and they may only address the board on CPS Energy-related business. Speakers should state their first and last name, the organization or group they represent. For this meeting, we have one in-person speaker. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. Thomas, will you please cue the timer? And our first speaker is Henrietta LaGrange.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Henrietta LaGrange. I'm a member of the Mulberry Street Girl Gang and Growing Up Brown. And this evening, thank you for letting me bring Felipe because they're asking for Felipe, so I had to bring him. But one thing I want to say is I know that this will probably be the last board meeting of this year. It's not easy for me to be here. It's because you all have done an amazing job. Rudy, you have not completed a year, and this calendar is already 365, the work that you have done. Janie Gonzalez, yourself, Dr. Romero, and every worker that's here. I don't know everybody by name, but you have done an amazing job. The figures don't show your work, but I know the work is there. There's a lot of emotion, but my emotion is to tell you that this town is with you. San Antonio loves you, chiquito. Rudy, ¿quién se que le decía el chulo? Grandma. It's grandma. And I just listened to her. She said, you can call him chulo too. Okay, grandma? And if I call him Rudy, it's because I have permission from his wife that I can address him by his first name. But I know that you're the vice presidents of electricity, gas, Deanne, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Lillian and Natalie. And my lawyer friend out there, thank you. There's not enough words for me to say of the great work that you do because I'm out there. And I see it because why? People call me and they expect me to show up, and I do. Thank you.
Much. Any additional public comments? If you don't mind, Trustee Romero, I'm just going to give a couple of remarks. Again, good evening, my esteemed colleague, Dr. Romero, those of us who are here present, and valued members of the community. You know, Ms. Henrietta LaGrange just spoke, and she's really a valued community member. You know, this evening input has not been, you know, we don't have lines of people participating. And it was designed when we heard feedback from the community that they shouldn't take time off during the day to give public input. But her public input, believe it or not, we can smile, we like that Felipe is here, but the reality is that she matters and many individuals like her matter. The individuals that show up to citizens to be heard, we do listen to that feedback. So thank you, Ms. LaGrange, for being here.
To the messages on NPR radio of CPS inviting people.
But thank you. But thank you, ma'am. As we wrap up another successful year at CPS Energy, again, I want to express my deep gratitude for your unwavering support and the dedication. Your contributions have been instrumental in our achievements this year. And on that note, yes, it's the holidays, so I want to provide you a couple of safety tips. As we're in full swing of the holiday season, it's crucial to remember the importance of safety in our homes. Let us share some essential tips. Here's a couple of them for a joyous and secure holiday. Number one, lighting tips. Be mindful not to overload electrical outlets, secure cords safely to prevent trip hazards, and avoid running them under carpets. Remember to unplug all light displays before leaving your home or going to bed. A couple of tips for trees. If you have a tree, keep it away from the heat sources. For those who prefer artificial trees, ensure that they are fire resistant. Outdoor displays. When decorated outdoors, use lights certified by Outdoor Use and hang them with hooks instead of staples or nails. And importantly, keep ladders away from power lines for your safety. And then beyond these holiday safety tips, let's not forget general safety practices. Install and regularly test smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors in your home. It's a small step that can save lives. And again, just thank you for your input all year long. So on that note, again, we continue to encourage you that you participate in whatever fashion you can. And on behalf of CPS and the Board of Trustees, I want to wish you a safe and joyous holiday break. And let's keep this spirit of safety, collaboration, and innovation into the coming years. And thank you again very much. Dr. Romero, I don't know if you want to add anything? No. Okay, so item number 4 is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Maybe we should just hang out a little longer now. Second, all in favor? Aye. So thank you again, everybody who showed up, and Merry Christmas. Oh, Happy Holidays. And Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah. And